When he opened his eyes after the coma, the first thing I heard was, "Don't cry, little one. I promised I'd come back." I never imagined that man would turn my entire world upside down the night they wheeled him into the ICU with a bullet in his chest. Rain hammered against the ICU windows like it was trying to wash away every stain this city had ever left behind. Chicago never slept. Even at 3 in the morning, red and blue police lights flashed outside, neon bar signs glowed, and street lamps shimmered in the puddles. I stood by the window with a cup of cold coffee in my hands, staring at those lights. 26 years old, 5 of them spent as an ICU nurse, and I still hadn't grown numb to how much pain passed through these walls every single night. "Ava, incoming!" Maria's voice snapped me out of it. Her face was tight. Gunshot. Bad one. I set the cup down and headed for the trauma bay. I'd seen everything over the years, drive-by wounds, gang hits, the aftermath of street wars, but every time, the same thought squeezed my heart. Someone's son, someone's brother, someone's father. When they rolled the gurney in, I froze for half a second. The man on it was different, even pale, even with blood soaking his shirt, even with his eyes closed. He radiated something that made you want to step back. Tall, broad-shouldered, features carved from marble, dark hair plastered to his forehead by rain and sweat. An old scar sliced across his left cheekbone, a thin white line that made his face look even harder. "Gunshot to the chest, bullet nicked the lung," the paramedic rattled off. "Massive blood loss, pressure's tanking." I moved in on autopilot, checking pulse, hooking up monitors, years of muscle memory. But inside, something coiled tight. This man was dangerous. I felt it in my bones. "Who is he?" I whispered to Maria while we prepped the wound. She shook her head without looking up. "Don't ask questions you don't want answers to, Ava. See the ink on his wrist?" I glanced. On the inside of his left wrist was a black crown with the initials LV. I didn't know much about underworld symbols, but even I knew that mark belonged only to someone at the very top of the food chain. "Mafia?" I breathed. "Worse," Maria said, flicking me a quick look. "Valenti." My hand faltered for a split second, but I forced myself to focus. Valenti. Everyone in Chicago knew that name. The cruelest family in the city, controlling half of it. People whispered it. Even cops were afraid. But right now, he was just a man bleeding out on my table. And it didn't matter who he was. I'd taken an oath. The surgery lasted 4 hours. The bullet had come dangerously close to his heart and torn through a lung. Dr. Reeves worked in focused silence. I assisted, passing instruments, watching vitals. The whole time I couldn't shake the feeling that even unconscious, this man dominated the room. When it was over and dawn was breaking, they moved him to a private ICU room and hooked him up to everything that beeped. I stayed on duty. I sat beside him, charting numbers, checking drips, and I couldn't stop looking at his face. In repose, it was almost beautiful. Sharp lines, strong jaw, but something about the curve of his mouth, the long lashes, made him look almost noble instead of just brutal. "Who are you?" I wondered, adjusting his blanket. That was the exact moment his eyes opened. I startled, nearly dropping my tablet. His eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they locked onto me with an intensity that stole my breath. "Where am I?" His voice was hoarse, low, with a faint accent. "Hospital," I managed, trying to sound calm and professional. "You've been operated on. Gunshot wound. Please don't move." "Who are you?" He cut me off, never blinking. "I'm your nurse, Ava Collins. I'll be looking after you." He studied me in silence for a long moment. Then, slowly, painfully, he lifted his hand and brushed my wrist. The touch was feather-light, but goosebumps raced across my skin. "You're afraid of me," he said. Not a question. "No," I lied, shaking my head even though my heart was hammering. "I'm afraid for you. You lost a lot of blood. You're lucky to be alive." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe something else. "What's your name?" he asked again. "Ava." "Ava," he repeated, tasting it. "Soft name. Pretty." I had no idea how to answer that. Patients didn't usually speak to me so intimately. "You need to rest," I said gently, slipping my wrist free. "I'll give you more pain meds." "No." He shook his head. "I need to stay awake." "But you're in pain." "Always in pain, little one," he said, the corner of his mouth twitching in something that might have been a smile. "I'm used to it." Something about those words stung. Little one. He'd called me little one, and for reasons I couldn't explain, the nickname warmed me from the inside. "What's your name?" I asked before I could stop myself. He looked at me for a long beat, then answered, "Luca Valenti." I knew the last name, of course, but Luca, it sounded almost tender. It didn't fit a man with eyes that cold. "Mr. Valenti, you really need to—" "Just Luca," he interrupted again. "And you'll stay with me?" "I'm on shift until morning." "Good." He closed his eyes, but he didn't let go of my hand. He just held it. And for some reason, I didn't pull away. I sat there until shift change, holding the hand of the most dangerous man in Chicago. The next 3 days were strange. Luca Valenti was nothing like a normal patient. Men in dark suits with cold faces and guns under their jackets came and went. Conversation stopped the moment I walked in, but with me, Luca was different. He barely spoke, just watched, studied me like he was trying to figure out what I was. Every time I checked his IV or changed a dressing, he went perfectly still, eyes never leaving me. "Why aren't you afraid?" he asked one evening while I changed his bandages. "I am," I admitted, "but you're hurt. Hurt people need help. Doesn't matter who they are." "You know who I am?" "Yes." "And still—" He trailed off, watching my hands work gently over the stitches. "You're strange, Ava." "Maybe," I smiled, "but I'm a nurse. My job is to heal." "Even monsters?" There was something bitter in his voice. I met his eyes. "You're not a monster. Just a man who made bad choices. That doesn't mean you don't deserve a second chance." He stared at me like I'd said something impossible, then slowly lifted his hand and brushed my cheek, shockingly gentle. "You're too good for this world, little one." My heart flipped. I knew I should pull away, knew it was wrong, knew he was dangerous, but I couldn't move. "And you're too sad," I whispered. His eyes widened. For a second, I saw something raw and unguarded. Then he dropped his hand and turned toward the window. "Go, Ava. Your shift's over." I wanted to say more, but the moment was gone. I left the room with shaking hands. On the 4th day, they discharged him. I came in that morning and his room was empty. My chest ached. I hadn't even said goodbye. "Ava," Maria called. "Chief wants you." Frowning, I went to Dr. Reeves's office and knocked. "Come in." I stepped inside and froze. Besides Dr. Reeves stood a tall, lean man in an impeccable black suit, gray eyes like winter steel. "Miss Collins," Dr. Reeves said, looking tense. "This is Mr. Benedetto, a representative of the Valenti family." Ice slid down my spine. "Miss Collins," the man said with a smile that never reached his eyes, "Mr. Valenti was very pleased with your care. He wishes to thank you personally." "I don't need thanks," I said quickly. "I was just doing my job." "Nevertheless," he held out an envelope. "This is for you, and Mr. Valenti asked me to say that if you ever need help, anything at all, you have only to call." My fingers trembled as I took it. Inside was a business card, just a name and a phone number and a bank check that made my head spin. "I can't accept this." I tried to hand it back. "Mr. Valenti insists," Benedetto said coolly, "and believe me, refusing him is unwise." It sounded like a threat. I swallowed hard. "Fine, thank you." He nodded and left. I stood there clutching the envelope, feeling strange. Part relieved I'd never see Luca Valenti again, part empty. The next 2 weeks fell back into routine. Work, home, work. I tried to forget those dark eyes and that rough voice calling me little one. Tried not to think about the way my heart raced when he looked at me. But at night, lying in bed, I remembered anyway. It happened on a Friday night. I was walking home after a late shift, exhausted. My little neighborhood on the south side wasn't the safest, but in 8 years, nothing truly bad had ever happened. I cut through an alley, my usual shortcut, and heard footsteps behind me. My heart lurched. I walked faster. The footsteps sped up. "Hey, sweetheart," a rough male voice called, mocking. "What's the rush?" I turned. 3 guys. Young, drunk, cocky grins. They reeked of cheap beer. "Leave me alone!" I tried to sound firm, but my voice shook. "Aw, she's scared," one laughed. "We just want to talk." They closed in. I backed against the wall, fumbling for my phone. "Wallet, phone, now," the oldest one said, hand out. I was shaking so hard I could barely think. "Please, I don't have much. Take it and let me go." "Or maybe we take more than money," the second one sneered, eyes sliding over me. Panic crashed over me. I bolted, but one of them grabbed my arm. I screamed. Then everything changed. First came the low growl of an engine, then blinding headlights. A black SUV roared into the alley and screeched to a halt. 2 men in suits jumped out, and from the back seat stepped another, Luca Valenti. I knew it was him even though the streetlight left half his face in shadow. He walked forward slowly, hands in the pockets of his long coat, but something in his stride made my attackers freeze. "Let her go," he said quietly, so quietly. But the ice in his voice raised every hair on my body. The guy holding me dropped my arm like it burned him. "Look, man, we didn't know she was yours." "Shut up," Luca cut in. He stepped closer. I pressed myself against the wall, unable to move. His men flanked the 3 guys. "You touched her," Luca continued, stopping a few feet away. "Scared her. She's crying." Only then did I realize tears were streaming down my face. "We didn't mean—" the oldest started. Luca's gaze silenced him. "Walk away," Luca said. "Now. And if I ever hear you bothered anyone in this neighborhood again, I'll come back. And next time I won't talk. Clear?" They nodded frantically and ran, tripping over each other. I stood trembling, barely able to stay upright. Then warmth. Luca draped his coat over my shoulders. "You okay?" he asked softly, turning me to face him. I looked up at him, still not believing he was real. "How? Where did you—" "My men have been watching you since the day I left the hospital," he said simply. "For your safety." "Why?" "Because," he murmured, brushing a tear from my cheek with his thumb, "I couldn't stop thinking about the girl with kind eyes who wasn't afraid to hold a monster's hand." My heart skipped. I opened my mouth. No words came. "I'm taking you home," he decided. "Where do you live?" 2 blocks. "But you don't have to." "I do." He took my hand, firm but gentle, and led me to the SUV. I slid into the back seat. He sat beside me, his men up front. The car pulled away smoothly. I was still shaking even though the heat was on. Luca noticed. Without a word, he slipped an arm around my shoulders and pulled me against him. "They won't come back," he said quietly. "I promise." "How can you be sure?" "Because now they know you're under my protection," he said, voice hardening. "And in Chicago, nobody crosses my protection twice." I knew I should be terrified, that this was wrong, that he was lethal. But instead of fear, I felt only relief. Safety. "Thank you," I whispered, burrowing into his shoulder. "Any time, little one." He walked me to my door, 3rd floor of a small brick building. When we stopped, I heard myself ask, "Can I have your number, just in case?" He smiled faintly. "You already do." "It's at home. I didn't bring the card." "Then I'll give you a new one." He took my hand, pulled a pen from his pocket, and wrote his number across my wrist. The touch was light, almost tender. "Call any time," he said, still holding my hand. "Day, night, doesn't matter. If you're scared, if you need help, if you just want to hear my voice, call. Okay. I nodded, cheeks burning. He looked at me a moment longer, then leaned down and brushed his lips against my forehead, so soft it was barely there. Good night, Ava. He walked away, leaving me at my door with a racing heart and a phone number inked on my skin. I didn't plan to call, really. But 2 nights later, I was walking home again and heard footsteps. Panic hit instantly. I grabbed my phone and dialed the number on my wrist. He picked up on the first ring. Ava. Luca, I'm scared. I'm walking home and I think someone's following me. Where are you? His voice turned to steel. I told him the street. I heard him barking orders to someone. Stay where you are. Walk into the nearest store, cafe, anywhere with people. My guys will be there in 3 minutes. Okay. I spotted a 24-hour corner store and bolted inside. The old Korean owner looked up, startled. Ava, you safe? Luca asked. Yes. Good. I'm coming myself. Wait for me. But you don't have to. Wait for me. He hung up. I stood clutching my phone with shaking hands. The owner offered me water. I nodded gratefully. 5 minutes later, the same black SUV pulled up. Luca stepped out. Suit rumpled, shirt collar open, like he'd dropped everything and run. I flew out the door and straight into his arms. He caught me, holding me tight. I'm here, he murmured, one hand stroking my hair. It's okay, you're safe. I buried my face in his chest, breathing in expensive cologne and warm man. I'm sorry I bothered you. It was probably nothing. Never apologize for calling me, he said fiercely, pulling back to look me in the eye. Never. Understand? I nodded. I'm taking you home, and I'm walking you up. I'm checking the apartment. Luca, really? I said I'm checking. I didn't argue. Truth was, I was terrified to be alone. He walked me inside my tiny one-bedroom, books everywhere, soft throw blankets, photos on the walls. Cozy, he said, and his voice held real warmth. Thanks. Tea? I asked, suddenly hyper-aware that Luca Valenti was standing in my living room. I'd love some. I put the kettle on. He sat on the couch, loosened his jacket. I kept stealing glances, my heart pounding again. He looked so out of place in my little world, too big, too dark, yet somehow perfectly right. Ava, he called when I brought the cups. Yeah? Sit. I sat, leaving a respectable gap. He smirked, hooked an arm around my waist, and tugged me flush against his side. I gasped. Luca? What? Mischief danced in his eyes. This is more comfortable. It's not right. Why? Because you're and we're too different. Different is good, he said, twirling a strand of my hair around his finger. You're light. I'm dark. Balance. You're teasing me. Never. His face went serious. Ava, I haven't felt anything like this in years. Maybe ever. What do you feel? I whispered. Peace, he said simply. For the first time in 33 years. Peace. When I'm with you, I don't want to kill. I don't want to fight. I just want to be. My heart clenched. The raw honesty in his voice, the pain, it made me want to hold him and never let go. Luca, I know you're scared, he went on. I know what I am to you, a monster. And you're right. I've done things that should damn me straight to hell. But when you look at me, for 1 second, I think maybe I'm not completely lost. I couldn't stand it. I reached up and cupped his cheek. He went perfectly still, staring at me like no one had ever touched him gently before. You're not a monster, I said softly. You're a man who forgot what it feels like to be loved. His breath hitched. He took my hand and pressed his lips to my palm. Slow, lingering, so tender my eyes stung. Where did you come from, little one? He whispered. Why aren't you afraid to look the devil in the eye? Because I don't see the devil, I answered. I see the man who came running in the middle of the night because I was scared. The man who protected me when he could have walked away. Monsters don't do that. You think too highly of me, and you think too little of yourself. He laughed, short, rough, then pulled me onto his lap. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. "Ava," he said, voice low and velvet. "If you want me to leave, say it now, because in another minute I won't be able to stop." I should have told him to go, should have been sensible. Instead, I whispered, "Stay." His eyes darkened. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to change my mind. I didn't. I closed my eyes and felt his lips on mine. The kiss was careful, almost shy, like he was afraid he'd scare me, break me. I parted my lips and he deepened it, but still gentle, still slow, learning every corner of my mouth. When we broke apart, I was trembling. He pulled me closer, burying his face in my hair. "God," he breathed, "you're going to ruin me, Ava Collins." "Is that bad?" I asked softly. "No," he said, pulling back to look at me with wonder. "It's the best thing that's ever happened to me." We stayed like that, wrapped around each other, until the sky outside turned pale. He told me pieces of himself in short, careful sentences. How he grew up in a family where love was weakness and kindness betrayal. How at 15 he killed for the first time to protect his little brother. How he slowly lost himself in blood and violence. "But you," he whispered, kissing my hair, my forehead, my cheeks, "you reminded me there's still light in this damn city, that there are still people who heal instead of hurt, who cry over the wounded, even when the wounded are killers." "Luca," I said, looking up at him, "I can't change your past, and I don't know if I can change your future, but I want to try. I want to be with you. I want to show you that you deserve real love." He went still, then slowly sank to his knees in front of me, this terrifying, lethal man, and rested his head on my lap. "I don't deserve you," he said hoarsely, "but I swear on everything holy, I'll try. I'll try to be better. For you." I ran my fingers through his hair, tears rolling down my cheeks, from happiness, from fear, from the overwhelming thing growing between us, terrifying, inevitable. Love. The weeks that followed felt like a dream. Luca came every day, sometimes in daylight, sometimes in the dead of night. We walked the city, sat in quiet cafes, talked for hours. He told me about his world in careful doses, shielding me from the worst. I told him about mine, the hospital, my patients, why I became a nurse. "My mom died when I was 16, I said one day on a park bench, sharing a blanket. "Cancer. She fought for 2 years. I watched the nurses care for her, ease her pain, hold her hand when it hurt too much. That's when I knew, helping people who are suffering, that's my calling." Luca stared into the distance for a long time, then quietly, "I had a little sister, Julia. She was like you, kind, bright, believed the best in everyone." His jaw tightened. "They killed her when she was 19, rivals sending my father a message." My heart broke for him. "Luca, I'm so sorry." "I killed them all," he said flatly. "Every single person involved. Their families, their friends, their associates. I erased them. And you know what? It didn't bring her back. Didn't make the pain stop. Just added more blood to my hands." I took his face in my hands and made him look at me. "You can't change the past, but you can decide who you want to be from now on." "With you, I want to be better," he whispered, pressing his forehead to mine. "For you, I'll change." And he did. Slowly. His men later told me he became different. Less violence, more negotiation. He was still head of the family, still controlled half the city, but he did it. Gentler. More human. "You've bewitched him," Marco, his right hand, told me one day when I came to the office to re-bandage Luca's arm after a small skirmish. 20 years I've known him, and I've never seen him listen to anyone the way he listens to you. "I didn't bewitch him," I smiled, finishing the bandage. "I just love him, and I believe he can be better." "And he loves you so much he'd burn the world down to keep you safe," Marco said seriously. "Know that. If anyone ever threatens you, he'll level Chicago." The words scared me and warmed me at the same time. I never thought anyone could love me that completely. 2 months after we met, Luca brought me to his house, a massive estate on the edge of the city, surrounded by high walls and guards. Inside was luxurious but cold, black and white, expensive furniture, no personal touches. "This isn't a home," I said, looking around. "It's a fortress." "Yes," he agreed, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "But I want it to become a home. With you." I turned, stunned. "What?" "Move in with me," he said softly. "I know it's fast. I know it'll scare you. But Ava, I don't want to spend a single night without you. I want to wake up to your face, fall asleep holding you. I want this cold place filled with your light." My breath caught. It was insane. We'd known each other 2 months. He was part of a world I didn't understand. It could all end in disaster. But when I looked into his eyes and saw the hope, the vulnerability, I couldn't say no. "Okay," I whispered. "I'll move in." He crushed me in a hug so tight I could barely breathe, then lifted me off my feet and spun me, laughing, the first time I ever heard his real, carefree laugh. "You're going to make me the happiest man alive, little one. I promise you'll never regret it." I didn't. Life with Luca was strange, sometimes terrifying, but magical. He surrounded me with care, protection, love. Every morning he woke before me and made breakfast. Every evening he met me after work, himself or with security. He showered me with flowers, gifts, but the most precious thing was his time. He canceled meetings, postponed deals, just to spend an evening curled up with me by the fire. "This house used to be a place I slept between wars," he'd say, kissing the top of my head. "Now it's the only place I want to come back to, because you're here." I kept working at the hospital, and he never asked me to quit. He was proud. "You save lives," he said. "You make the world better. I just control the chaos, but you create order out of love. That's far more important." Of course there were dark moments. Sometimes he came home late, covered in blood, new bruises blooming. I cleaned wounds, cried, begged him to be careful. He held me, promised everything would be okay. "I can't just walk away, Ava," he explained. "It's not that kind of life. But I'm trying. For you. Trying to take fewer risks, delegate more. Because now I have a reason to live. You're my reason." Everything changed one December evening. I was walking home from the hospital. Luca was supposed to pick me up but called to say he was stuck in a meeting. I told him I'd be fine. The neighborhood was safe, and his security was always nearby. But that night, security wasn't there. They grabbed me 2 blocks from home. 3 men in masks, black van. I didn't even manage to scream, a cloth over my mouth that smelled sickly sweet, and darkness swallowed me. I woke in a cold, damp warehouse, hands tied behind my back, mouth taped. My head pounded. I was on a concrete floor surrounded by shadows. "Well, look who's awake," a voice drawled. A man stepped out of the dark, tall, thin, face crisscrossed with scars, eyes full of madness. "Know who I am?" he asked, crouching in front of me. "Doesn't matter. What matters is who you are. You're Luca Valenti's favorite toy, and you know what we do with our enemies' toys? We break them." Terror flooded me. I jerked against the ropes. They cut deeper. "Easy, sweetheart," he laughed. "We need you alive and pretty, for now. Valenti will come for you. He always does. And when he walks in..." He dragged a finger across his throat. "We finish him, and you get to watch your boyfriend bleed out. Romantic, right?" I tried to scream. The tape muffled it. Tears poured down my face. "Shh," he said, patting my head like I was a dog. It made me want to vomit. "Won't be long now." He left me in the dark. I sat shivering, mind racing. How long had I been here? Did Luca know I was gone? Was he looking? "Please," I prayed silently. "Please don't come. Don't walk into this trap. I won't survive if something happens to you." But I knew he would come. Of course he would. He'd walk through hell for me. Time crawled. I drifted in and out. Men came and went, checking on me, talking in low voices, setting the trap, waiting for Luca. Then gunshots, sharp, deafening, one after another, screams, glass shattering. I jerked, heart in my throat. The warehouse door exploded open. Luca stood in the doorway, covered in blood, his or theirs, I couldn't tell, gun in his hand, face a mask of rage and terror. His eyes swept the room, and when they found me, something inside them shattered. "Ava!" He ran to me, dropping to his knees. His hands shook as he ripped the tape off my mouth, sliced the ropes. "God, Ava, are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "Luca," I sobbed, collapsing against him. "It's a trap. They want to kill you. We have to go." "I know," he said, kissing my hair, my face, my hands frantically. "I know, little one, but I couldn't leave you." "Behind you!" I screamed as a man rose from behind crates with a gun. Luca spun, shielding me with his body, and fired. The man dropped. More shots rang out from every direction. I covered my ears, counting like Luca had once taught me. 1, 2, 3. When I opened my eyes, it was over. Bodies on the floor. Luca's men swept in, clearing the warehouse. "Clean, boss," Marco reported. Luca nodded, never letting me go. Then he scooped me up like I weighed nothing. "We're going home," he rasped. "Right now." He carried me to the car and held me the entire ride, rocking slightly, his body trembling. "I'm sorry," he kept whispering. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I was supposed to protect you. I failed. It's my fault." "No," I said, cupping his blood-streaked face. "You saved me. You came. You always come." "I almost lost you," his voice broke. "When they called and said you were gone. I died, Ava. Every second was hell. I would have burned this city to the ground to find you." "I'm here," I whispered, kissing him. "I'm alive. I'm yours." At home, he carried me to the bathroom, gently undressed me, ran a warm bath. He stripped and climbed in behind me, holding me against his chest. "Never again," he murmured, lips against my skin. "I'll die before anyone touches you again." I turned in his arms, wrapping mine around his neck. "Luca, listen to me. This wasn't your fault. You can't control everything. But you can be here. You can love me. That's all I need." He searched my eyes for a long time, guilt and fear warring on his face. Then he nodded and held me tighter, like he was afraid I'd vanish. That night, we just held each other. No words. Just breathing together, feeling the warmth, the closeness. After the kidnapping, Luca became even more careful. My security tripled. He insisted I take leave from the hospital, at least a couple weeks until things settled. "I need to know you're safe," he pleaded. "Please, Ava, for me." I agreed. Honestly, after what happened, I was terrified to leave the house. Nightmares woke me screaming, and only Luca's arms around me let me fall back asleep. We spent days together. He barely left the estate, handing business to his men. We cooked, watched movies, read. He taught me chess. I taught him to bake cookies. "I am never going to live down the flour on my nose, am I?" He laughed when I smeared dough on his face. "Never," I grinned. He pinned me against the counter, looming over me. "Are you mocking me, Miss Collins?" "Possibly, Mr. Valenti," I said, looping my arms around his neck. He kissed me, slow, deep, tender. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I love you," he said quietly. "I know I say it 1,000 times a day, but I can't stop. I love you more than life, more than anything." "I love you too," I whispered. "So much it scares me sometimes." "Why scared?" "Because I'm terrified of losing you, that one day you won't come home." He cupped my face, eyes fierce. "Listen to me. I will always come back to you. Even if I have to crawl out of hell itself, I will come back. To you, I promise." I nodded, tears spilling. He kissed them away, one by one. "Don't cry, little one. Everything's going to be okay." And in that moment, I believed him. 3 weeks later, I went back to work, cautiously, with guards, but I needed it. I needed to feel useful, to save lives. Luca didn't fight me. He just made sure his people were always close. I grew used to black SUVs outside the hospital, to suited men who happened to be in the hallway when I was. Everything was calm, almost perfect. Then I realized my period was late. At first, I blamed stress, but when it hit 2 weeks, I bought a test. 2 pink lines. I sat on the bathroom floor clutching the stick, joy and terror crashing together. Pregnant. I was pregnant with Luca's baby. I sat there half an hour trying to process, and what I felt underneath all the fear was pure happiness. I was going to be a mother, our child, a little boy or girl with Luca's dark eyes and maybe his stubborn heart. That evening, I sat on the couch, clutching the test when Luca came home. He knew instantly something was wrong. "Ava, baby, what is it?" I held out the test, speechless. He took it, looked, froze, looked at me, back at the test. "This means—" His voice cracked. "I'm pregnant," I whispered. "Luca, I know we didn't plan it. I know it's complicated, but I want this baby. I want our baby. And if you're not ready, I'll understand." He cut me off with the tightest hug I'd ever felt. Then I felt his shoulders shake. I pulled back and saw tears streaming down his face. This hard, unbreakable man was crying. "Ava," he choked, "you've given me everything. A home, love, purpose. And now you're giving me a child. Our child." He dropped to his knees, pressing his palm gently to my still flat stomach. "Hey, little one," he whispered, voice breaking. "I'm your daddy, and I swear I'll be the best father I know how to be. I'll protect you and your mom from the whole world. I'll give you a life full of love and happiness. I promise." I cried, stroking his hair. My heart felt too full, like it might burst. "We're going to be a family," I said through happy tears. "A real family." "Yes," he said, standing to kiss me. "A family." That night we stayed awake until dawn, making plans, dreaming, picking names. Luca was like a kid, excited, giddy, a little scared. He was already planning the nursery, hiring the best doctors, talking about security upgrades. "I want to get out," he said suddenly while we lay tangled in bed. "Not tomorrow, but gradually. Hand the business to Marco. I want to be here for you two. I want to be a normal dad who goes to school, plays, and teaches his kid to ride a bike." "Kid?" I teased. "You already know it's a boy?" "I feel it," he said, hand on my belly. "A stubborn little guy who'll look like me but have your heart. And if it's a girl? Then I'll be the strictest father alive," he said seriously. "No dates until she's 30, maybe 35. She'll live in a tower like a princess, and I'll be her only knight." I laughed. "Impossible." "Fine, 25, he conceded, but his eyes were deadly serious. "Ava, I know men. I was one of the worst. I don't want anyone like the old me anywhere near our daughter." "You're not that man anymore," I said, touching his cheek. "You've changed. You're better." "Because of you," he whispered, kissing me. "Everything good in me is because of you." The next 2 months were the happiest of my life. My belly grew, and Luca couldn't keep his hands off it. Every morning he talked to the baby, told stories, sang old Italian lullabies in that low, velvety voice I never knew he had. He came to every appointment, held my hand during ultrasounds, cried the first time we heard the heartbeat. He redid the nursery 3 times because it has to be perfect. "Luca, that's the 4th crib." I laughed when another delivery arrived. "The last one had sharp corners," he defended. "Our son could bump his head." "He hasn't even been born yet." "I just want everything to be perfect," he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "I want him to grow up safe, surrounded by love and beauty. I want to give him what I never had." I turned and kissed him. "You're giving him the most important thing, a father who loves him. That's worth more than any crib." He smiled, that rare, soft smile that made him look almost boyish. "I love you so much, Ava Collins. And I love you, Luca Valenti." Everything was perfect. Too perfect. I should have known it couldn't last. It happened at 5 months pregnant. Luca left for a meeting. Important, he said, the last big one before he started stepping away. He promised to be home for dinner. I was cooking his favorite pasta when the doorbell rang. I opened it to Marco, his face gray. My stomach dropped. "Marco, what happened?" "Ava," he could barely speak. "Boss, Luca, there was an ambush. He's been shot. He's in the hospital. Critical." The world tilted. I gripped the doorframe to stay upright. "Which hospital? Take me, now." "Ava, you shouldn't stress. The baby. Take me to him," I screamed. 20 minutes later, I burst into the same ICU where I worked. Colleagues looked at me with pity. Dr. Reeves met me, face grim. "Ava," he said, taking my hands. "He's in a coma. Gunshot to the head. The bullet grazed his skull, caused massive swelling. We've done everything we can. Now we wait." "I need to see him," I said, voice hollow. He led me to the room. Luca lay hooked to machines, head wrapped in bandages, face pale, dark bruises under his eyes. He looked small, broken. I took his hand. It was warm. "Hi," I whispered, sitting. "It's me, your little one, remember? You promised you'd always come back." Nothing but the steady beep of monitors. "Luca," I said, placing his hand on my belly. "Feel? Our son is kicking. He wants his daddy to wake up. He wants to hear your voice." Silence. I stayed all night, and the next day, and the next, only leaving for the bathroom, eating when Marco forced me. But most of the time I held his hand, talked to him, read aloud, sang the lullabies he'd taught me. Doctors said 50-50. He could wake tomorrow, or in a month, or never. I refused to believe never. He promised. "You can't break a promise," I whispered, kissing his knuckles. "You're Luca Valenti. You never break your word. Please come back. Please." A week passed. No change. Hope started to slip. At night, when no one was around, I cried into his shoulder. "Don't leave me," I begged. "Don't leave us. We love you so much. We need you." On the 8th day, a miracle. I was reading The Count of Monte Cristo, his favorite, when I felt his fingers twitch in mine. At first I thought I imagined it. Then they squeezed, weak, barely there, but real. "Luca?" I leaned over him. "Luca, can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered, once, twice, then opened, slowly, painfully. Dark eyes, foggy, confused, but alive. "Ava?" Barely a rasp. "I'm here," I cried, tears streaming. "I'm right here, my love." "Don't cry," he managed, trying to lift his hand. I helped, pressing it to my cheek. "Little one, I promised I'd come back." I sobbed and laughed at once, kissing his hand, his face, his lips. "You came back. You came back to me. Always," he breathed. "Always. Come back. To you and to him." His gaze dropped to my belly. "How is our baby?" "Perfect," I said, guiding his hand there again. "He's been waiting for you. We both have." He closed his eyes, smiling faintly. "I love you both," he whispered. "So much." "We love you," I said, "more than anything." Recovery was long and brutal. He had to relearn coordination, focus. Headaches were constant. But he fought with that stubborn fire because he wanted to be there when our son was born. I was with him every moment, helping with therapy, massaging tense muscles, holding him when the pain was too much. Marco took over the family completely. Luca walked away for good. "I don't need that world anymore," he told me one evening in the garden, watching the sunset. "Everything I need is right here. You, our son. This is my life now." A month before I was due, we got married. Quietly, just us, a few close friends, a priest in a small chapel. I wore a simple white dress. He wore black. When we said our vows, when he slipped the ring on my finger, the love in his eyes nearly undid me. "I vow to love you every day of my life," he said, holding my hands, "to protect you, care for you, make you happy. I vow to be the best husband, the best father. I swear you'll never regret choosing me." "I could never regret you," I whispered through tears. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me. My light in the dark. My love. My life." We kissed, and I felt a hard kick. Luca laughed, hand on my belly. "He's happy too," he said. "Our son is celebrating." "We all are," I smiled. Labor started on a freezing January morning. Luca panicked more than I did, pacing the delivery room, demanding the best doctors, snapping at nurses. "Luca, calm down," I laughed between contractions. "How am I supposed to be calm when you're—" He couldn't finish, just gripped my hand like he'd never let go. When our son finally cried and they laid him on my chest, tiny, red, perfect, the world stopped. "Hi, baby," I whispered, kissing his little head. "We waited so long for you." Luca stood beside me, tears falling freely. He touched our son's tiny hand with one careful finger. Perfect fingers wrapped around it. "He's perfect," Luca breathed. "Ava, look at him. He's perfect." "Of course he is," I smiled. "He's ours." We named him Matteo, Matteo Valenti, gift of God, and he truly was. 2 years later, I stood in the kitchen making dinner, listening to the sounds from the living room. Luca was on the floor helping 2-year-old Matteo build a tower. Well, mostly rebuilding after Matteo knocked it down again. "Papa, look!" Matteo squealed, waving a block. "I see, champ," Luca grinned. "Future architect." "Like Papa." "Yeah, just like Papa." I leaned in the doorway and watched, heart full. Luca Valenti, once the most feared man in Chicago, sat surrounded by toys with our son on his lap, utterly content. He glanced up, caught my eye, and smiled, that warm, gentle smile I loved more than anything. "Come here," he called softly. I went, sat beside them. Matteo immediately crawled into my lap and snuggled in. "Mommy, tired," he yawned. "Bedtime then," I said, kissing his curls. "Papa sing?" "Of course, buddy." Luca scooped him up and carried him upstairs. I followed, leaning against the nursery door as Luca tucked him in, then sat and sang that old Italian lullaby in his low, beautiful voice. Matteo's eyes drifted shut, clutching his stuffed bear. Luca kissed his forehead and quietly closed the door. In the hallway, he pulled me into his arms. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For everything. For our son. For our family. For showing me what happy feels like. For not being afraid to love a monster." "You were never a monster," I said, touching his face. "You were just a man who found his way home." He kissed me, slow, deep, full of everything we'd built. "I love you, Ava Valenti. I love you, Luca Valenti. Always." We stood wrapped in each other's arms while snow fell outside, blanketing the city in white. Somewhere out there, wars still raged, people still hurt. But here, in our little world, there was only love, only warmth, only light. And I knew, no matter what came next, we would face it together. Because we were a family, a real family. And that was the strongest weapon against any darkness. A year after Matteo was born, Luca opened a foundation for kids from broken homes. Matteo started preschool, where teachers marveled at how kind and caring he was, just like his mama. And every night we came together, kitchen, living room, garden, just us, just love. Luca never went back to the shadows. He found his place here, with me, with our son. He found the light he'd been searching for his whole life, and that light kept us warm. Today, tomorrow, always.